governor has a minute and a half, and then the president has a 1 minute, has a 30-second rebuttal. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Ask the question, please.
Mr. President, the August job report indicated that 96,000 new jobs were created. You both have stated that this number is lower than what you would like to see. What are your plans to increase employment and, therefore, lower unemployment over the next 4 years?
That's a very good question, Mr. Williams. First of all, I'd like to point out that I'll make an analogy to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who faced the Great Depression, had to get his way out of that great economic struggle. He had 12 years to accomplish that, and I've had 4. So I'd like to state that we're on our way. So, I'd like to strengthen the middle class, first of all. The top heaviness that the Republican platform has recommended will really just lead to a double-dip recession. So I'm going to lead to no tax hikes for the middle class, which will provide more opportunities for them to spend, therefore create job growth in the local sector. I will also increase the tax bracket for the $250,000 bracket, thereby cutting the deficit and allowing the federal government to spend more on job creation. You know, I'll call it right there. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Governor Romney.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Ms. Sawyer, for being the moderator of this debate. Let me just put it to you this way. President Obama has been the most expensive president, and we've seen the least results under his policies. 96,000 jobs created last month. Just to put that into perspective, 150,000 jobs need to be created each month just to keep up with the growing workforce. Okay? The unemployment rate among college graduates is 50%. That means 1 out of every 2 people graduating from college today cannot find a job. It's abysmal. It's pathetic. This economic recovery has been the worst since the Great Depression. President Obama promised us that he would give us this stimulus package, this extremely wasteful $900 billion package that would basically, he told us it would lower the unemployment rate to 5.6% today. Okay? Economists predicted that today, if we did absolutely nothing, a natural recovery without any government stimulus would keep the unemployment rate at 6%. Currently, we are at 8.1%. Okay, it's been above 8% for 42 straight months. His economic stimulus was basically a waste of money. It was crony capitalism. He gave most of the money to his supporters who would re-elect him in the fall. It wasn't supposed to be given to. It was supposed to be given to green energy companies, but these green energy companies like Solyndra have failed. With top-down economic policies, President Obama believes that the top of the economy should be the public sector and the bottom of the economy should be the private sector.
Thank you, Governor.
You have 30 seconds.
30 seconds rebuttal.
Again, so the Republicans have really promoted their Reaganistic policies, which is trickle-down economics, which is absolutely not feasible if the rich are not taxed and continue to buy foreign or not from small businesses. Strengthening the middle class is what is going to save this country, and the top-down policies that the Republican program promotes is simply not feasible in an economy that we are facing. And it's really the Bush administration that's caused this problem.
Thank you both.
Governor Mitt Romney, there has been a great deal of recent discussion about the tax rate paid by the wealthiest Americans and the claim that there is an imbalance. What changes, if any, would you propose in our tax code to address this?
Well, first of all, what we need to do with our tax code is we need to cut out the loopholes. Companies are saving money every year because they're not paying the full tax requirements that they're required to pay. Only 50% of the companies in this country are paying the full taxes that they're supposed to be paying. Okay, that's number one. That's going to save a lot of money going forward because the government's going to be receiving a lot more revenue. Second of all, we need to lower the tax rates on the rich. We currently have the highest tax rates at 35% for capital gains tax in the world. Okay. Canada just lowered their capital gains tax to 15%. They're seeing some of the biggest economic growth they've had seen in years in that country. Okay, by lowering everybody who has a parent who works for a corporation sees the benefits from top-down economic policies like we saw during the Reagan administration, trickle-down economics. Okay, if you're hired by a company, that company wants to. If we tax them less, they will have more money to save, so that way they can expand and hire more workers and grow their business that way. We want to have more taxpayers, not less taxpayers who pay more money.
President Obama?
Let's take a look at the bias that's presented by the Romney point of view. Right now, Mitt Romney is worth upwards of $200 million. As you just heard, he wants to cut the taxes paid by the upper class. Where is the middle class in this entire problem? Mr. Romney claims that he had retired from Bain Capital, his private equity firm, in 1999. It was shown that he continued making about 6 figures per year from that. In the Boston Herald, it reported that Romney would stay on as a part-time owner to provide input on investments. Is that factually inaccurate? Because he is CEO, president, and managing director, but claims no involvement and therefore gets tax breaks. What the upper class doing is absolutely ludicrous. Trickle-down economics is not feasible. I repeat, it's not feasible if people like Mr. Romney are not going to spend local and are going to continue to buy foreign, Mercedes, all these ridiculous luxury goods, and you're simply not going to stimulate the local economy. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, in terms of tax rates, you need to cut from the top. Give to the middle class. We're going to get a solid base. Having a top-heavy system will absolutely not work. You cut income taxes overall to reduce revenue under the 18.2% of GDP under the Reagan administration, which the Republican platform really promotes. So therefore, you cut the deficit by cutting unnecessary spending in the government sector, and you cut the government programs that are completely unnecessary.
The fundamental thing that President Obama doesn't understand is that jobs are not created from the government. Jobs are created from the private sector, okay? So if you have a business leader, who's being taxed to death and is being subject to all these excessive regulations, he is not going to be able to hire as many workers as he can. Take a business owner who owns a small business, take a restaurant, okay? If that restaurant is being taxed to death, that restaurant will not be able to open up a new location. There have been stories all across America of these business owners who are being stifled by regulations, who can't afford to open up new locations and hire new workers. That's the problem with the Obama administration and their tax policy. We want to flatten the tax code, keep it fair, lower taxes for everybody.
Mr. President, you both have stated that our national debt is too high and maybe out of control. What are your plans to reduce the national debt?
Again, I just mentioned this in the tax discussion. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this huge deficit that has been built up by Republican presidents such as Bush by cutting unnecessary spending and government programs that are not providing the results that we expect of them. So, if you cut income taxes overall, it gives more money to the people, but that's not going to cut our deficit. If you cut taxes, especially for the rich, who pay 98% of the taxes that come to the United States government, we're not going to be able to cut that deficit. It's a simple fact. We're not going to get the revenue that is needed. So taxes must stay high in order to cut a deficit, especially from the rich, and that's absolutely ridiculous. The middle class needs to stay strong to provide an economic recovery, and if the rich refuse to pay taxes, we're not going to be able to cut. We're not going to be able to cut the deficit down. It's just simple logistics.
Governor?
What President Obama doesn't understand is that Obama, over the past 4 years, has spent $7 trillion. He has ballooned our deficit by $7 trillion. How did he spend that much money? Honestly, I don't understand why, but I can tell you how he did it. He has a stimulus package that spent $900 billion. $900 billion that comes directly out of the taxpayer's pocket. We are already in debt. We can't continue to spend this money. He wants to raise taxes, but that's because he wants to fund all these wasteful, meaningless programs. To put that in perspective, $7 trillion over 4 years. President Bush, with 2 wars, okay, and a solid domestic program, spent $5 trillion in 8 years, okay? We're talking $7 trillion in 4 years. At the current rate, the CBO estimates that we're going to see a $20 trillion deficit by the end of his second term. It's absolutely ridiculous. The tax the rich gimmick, okay? You can raise your taxes as much as you want on the rich, but there has been completely nonpartisan studies that show if you raise the taxes on the rich by the way the Obama administration wants to raise them, only $8.5 billion will be raised. Do you realize how long that will fund the government? A week, okay? President Obama's tax raises will only fund the government for a week. He keeps wanting to do these temporary solutions that are not going to fix the economy. They're not going to fix the economy. They're not going to strengthen the middle class. It is complete baloney. The entire gimmick.
Mr. President?
30 seconds,
So-
Mr. President.
You keep hearing, I don't understand. Well, Mr. Romney just mention the wasteful programs, which in my minute and 30 seconds I said would be cut. Cut. Wars. 2 wars were fought because of who? George Bush. Alright? And you've heard him slandering Obama for all these, wasteful spending and all that stuff. What you haven't heard is a plan to cut the deficit. You haven't heard that from Mr. Romney. I provided a plan. We're going to raise taxes from the rich with their excess of wealth. We're going to pay down the deficit and get it back on even terms with China, all these countries that we borrowed from for too long.
Thank you both.
Governor Romney, what is your position on the federal government bailout of General Motors and Chrysler? Was it the right decision? If so, why? If not, why not?
Okay. Real quickly, going back to what Aiden said, his plan cuts $4 trillion out of the budget going forward, so he claims, okay? Actually, the $4 trillion that is saved over the next 10 years, $1 trillion of it counts of last year. So now we're talking about a $3 trillion budget cut going years forward. Actually, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Committee reveals that it actually increases our budget by $6.4 trillion. But anyway, going into the bailout. What I proposed back in 2008 when we had the when we had the problem with General Motors and Chrysler, I proposed a managed bankruptcy. Now, that's eventually what President Obama ended up doing. However, President Obama was not sure about how to go about these bailouts, so we passed TARP, I understand, but eventually what ended up happening was a managed bankruptcy, okay? That was what I proposed. It took President Obama 6 months to realize what a managed bankruptcy was, how that would be the best way to go about it, and it wasted $600 billion over that time of federal spending to try and stimulate General Motors and Chrysler.
I have been in office for 4 years. What you have seen since the fall in 2008 is a rebound of General Motors. That is what happened, and that is absolutely irrefutable. It has bounced back from bankruptcy. Mr. Romney can claim that we did not solve it in the time allotted, but what happened was a recovery of General Motors. Mr. Romney was not president at that time and had no bearing over what happened, and my administration did bail out General Motors, and it is rebounding. Again, these 4 years, I've inherited a failing General Motors, a huge national deficit, and what I've done in a span of 4 years cannot be seen as a solution to the entire economic problem. What Romney has continued to say is that it's not enough, it's not enough. Again, let's look at FDR. 12 years, and he still hadn't solved the entirety of the Great Depression. What we're seeing is the early stages of a rebound.
Governor?
It is a known historical fact that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's policies did not entirely get this country out of the Great Depression. World War II did. Okay, just aside from that point. The whole point with the General Motors bailout is that it could have happened sooner. Instead, we wasted 6 months and $600 billion because of the Obama administration's inability to act. Now, all you hear from that side of the aisle is blame Bush, blame Bush, blame Bush. President Obama has said it himself. He's been in office for 4 years. It's time for him to take responsibility for his war in Afghanistan and his absolutely suffering recovery.
President Obama, what is your current position on maintaining federal support for student loans and maintaining the current interest rate on said loans?
I'm very glad you asked that, Mr. Williams. As I'm speaking to a room of high school students, I'm assuming a majority of you would like to go to college. A college degree is what is going to separate those who have jobs and those who don't, and that's a fact. Alright? College tuition rates are soaring right now. It's criminal. And again, that is contributed to the excess money surplus of the wealth of the rich. Now, my federal Pell Grants provide aid to struggling students who cannot pay $250,000 for 4 years of college. And that no one should be able to pay that, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, what Romney has not even mentioned is how he plans on getting these people college degrees. People are underemployed and all that, but if you don't have a college degree, your chances of finding employment are dismal, absolutely dismal.
Thank you, Mr. President.
President Obama, with all due respect, the reason why the college graduates can't find jobs is because they have such a terrible economy to work on. But anyway, going into college loans. The college loan bill in Congress had bipartisan support, okay? Both Republicans and Democrats believe that we need to keep those student loan rates low, so that way we can we can make the cost of a college education affordable. Okay? He wanted to pay for these lower tax rates for student loans through taxing the rich. Once again, that seems to be the solution for everything with the Democrats. Tax the rich, tax the rich. We'll be okay, tax the rich. The problem is that Republicans are, actually the solution is that Republicans are looking for a long-term solution through taxing the loopholes, creating an economy with more taxpayers rather than an economy with less taxpayers who pay more. That's the way that we need to that's the way that we need to get this economy going. That's the way that we need to get everybody who needs a college education a college education.
President?
Again, this seems to be an attack on my administration, who has provided loans, which he said are the key to getting out of depression. Alright? What he's doing is continually on the attack of the Obama administration, which has provided ways to get out of inner city poverty through an online degree, through a low-cost college degree that can provide students a lifetime of economic support for not just themselves, but their families, their children. You know, it's absolutely the ticket to out of poverty for many inner city and rural poor Americans.
Governor Romney, what are your positions on stem cell research? Should stem cell research continue to be legal, and should taxpayer dollars be used to fund embryonic stem cell research?
Stem cell research is a newly emerging field. It is one of the most important fields we could possibly have in all of science, okay? Degenerative diseases like ALS, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, all of these mental illnesses and physical illnesses that are debilitating and are killing millions of Americans, thousands of Americans, we need to find a cure, okay? But there's a difference between stem cell research and killing babies for stem cells, okay? Stem cells have been found inside the placenta, the umbilical cord, and amniotic fluid, okay? Stem cells have also been found in adult human bone marrow, which can be extracted and altered, so that way they can develop into many different types of cells that can cure these degenerative diseases. Scientists are now also capable of transforming adult cells into stem cells through a process called nuclear reprogramming. This process creates pluripotent cells, which are cells that can transform into many other types of cells and have been successfully tested in laboratory settings. There is no reason why we need to be killing babies to create the stem cells for our stem cell research.
I'm not sure if I heard the question correctly, but we're talking about stem cell research, not killing babies, first of all. Now, I'm not sure if Mr. Romney is aware of this, but biomedical engineering is predicted to be the fastest growing field in the next 10 years, with a planned growth of 71% from 2008 to 2018. He's repetitively said Republicans are searching for a long-term solution. How about a field that is going to almost double in 10 years? First of all, he has accurately cited that you don't need to kill babies to fund stem cell research, which is not killing babies. First of all. Now, if we can do this without aborting a mother's pregnancy, it will be a bipartisan success. Now, that is not always the case. Stem cells are found in the fetus of a mother after the conception. Now, you keep searching for a long-term solution. Here's a field that will provide jobs for many Americans who get the student loans, who will get to college, get a degree, and get a field in the fastest-growing field that should evolve in the next 10 years.
President Obama, I never denied the significance of stem cell research. I think it's an importantly, rapidly growing field. I never denied the fact that we need to keep the student loan rates low on college graduates. Those are two important things. You just said that that question wasn't about abortion, yet you're going into the talk about, killing babies once again. It is not necessary in any way to kill a baby for stem cell research. I never denied that stem cell research is important, because it is, and that's just simply my position.
Now, give these guys about 2 minutes just to take a breath. All right? Thank you, folks. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a break. Okay, next question, please.
Mr. President, under what circumstances or conditions would you send American troops into harm's way when American security is not directly at risk?
I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Williams. That is a key issue that we've seen through the Bush administration. Now, the 9/11 attacks were an absolute atrocity, and I support, for every ounce of my being, going into to find Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely vital to this country's security. Now, going to Iraq to topple Saddam Hussein was absolutely ridiculous. I don't know, a lot of you have heard about the conflict in Syria. Now, I have not commented a lot on it, and I've cited a very finite line that Syria can cross, and we will not intervene because it is an absolute threat to national security. Now, that line is faster and faster approaching, and if it does approach, I will most definitely take the utmost effort, and I will definitely release troops to put down the conflict in Syria.
Thank you, Mr. President. Governor?
Okay. Let's clear one thing up. 9/11, George Bush's response to 9/11 was the most decisive, clear, best possible reaction that he could have had to such a national tragedy. Okay? Bush was even criticized for not sending troops into that situation even earlier. Okay? When we killed Saddam Hussein, it was not mission accomplished. Okay? That is not the mission accomplished. I understand that Bush had a whole celebration on a battleship about that, but that was not mission accomplished. When we killed Osama bin Laden, that is not mission accomplished. We are fighting a huge terrorism war that has roots in Libya, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all these Middle Eastern countries. We've seen Egypt has been blowing up, as well as areas all around the Middle East. This country cannot lead from behind. President Obama's policies have been a lead from behind policy. America is the strongest nation on earth. When we prosper, the world prospers. We cannot be leading from behind in situations and depending on our allies who are not as strong as us to get what our goals need to be done to accomplish our goals in this world. Okay? Whether we have economic motives, whether we have social motives, whether we have our own, if it's for the sake of our reputation, we need to lead from the front. Leading from behind is not the way to go about doing business in this world, especially because it's so volatile.
Mr. President?
If I do recall, I did support 9/11 in my previous statement, and Bush did handle that very well. What I did not support was intervention in foreign conflicts that had absolutely nothing to do with the United States. Now, earlier, Mr. Romney cited wars as a detrimental part of this economy. It had not stimulated, it was wasteful spending, and we were in these war-torn countries for much too long. If you want to be involved in foreign conflicts, get involved diplomatically at first. You don't need to rush in and send troops, and that is what the Obama administration has done.
Thank you, Bush.
Governor Romney, what is your position on same-sex marriage and why?
Okay. This is a question that has been very controversial over the past couple months. Same-sex marriage is simply not marriage. Okay? I feel that gays should be able to live together. I believe that gays should be able to have hospital visitation rights. I believe that gays should be able to adopt a baby. Even though there has been research against that, I do not feel that that is a right. We should not be limiting the rights of individuals by denying them the right to access a baby. However, we need to understand as a nation that the family is the basic foundation of our culture. If our family falls apart, our culture will soon fall apart. Studies have shown that kids are raised most properly when there's both a mom and a dad inside the house. Okay, those are the principles that our country have been founded on. Those are the principles that we need to keep with moving into the 21st century.
President?
Mr. Romney just cited that he was perfectly comfortable with having them, living in the same house, adopting a child. Now, what about that? Why is a word getting in the way of them being married? Now, I, Barack Obama, am a straight man. I am married and I'm Christian. It is in the Bible that two people of the same sex should not be married. But who is hurt? Who is hurt? If they can reap all the benefits of a marriage, why can't they be married? Alright? Use the word proper. Children are not properly raised if they're gay parents. What is proper? Alright? 100 years ago, women did not have the right to vote. It was not proper for women to vote. Okay? Now, it's not natural for two people of the same sex to get married or have sexual relations. But it's been seen in species as swans, penguins, pigeons, dolphins, elephants, monkeys, lions, sheep, bugs, and many other animals. What bothers the Republican platform about gays getting married? Not living together, not adopting a child, getting married.
the word marriage has religious connotations. And honestly, if we allow gays to get married, that would infuriate a huge number of people in this country because the word marriage has religious connotations. Now, President Obama just used the words proper and natural. He juxtaposed them, okay? Proper is allowing women to vote. That is proper. Natural is not allowing parents, 2 men or 2 women, to raise a child in a household where this is a newly developing phenomenon in this country, and we're gonna raise our children in these households.
Mr. President, what are your plans to ensure the viability of Social Security for future generations?
Separation of church and state, first of all. As to Social Security. Now, Social Security is a problem, and it's been recommended by many Republican leaders, such as George Bush, that it be privatized. The Republican platform seems to see that privatization is the key to everything. Romney has said earlier, jobs are not created by the government. They're simply not created by the government. However, when FDR was president, coming out of the Great Depression, he created the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Public Works Administration. All these things have provided jobs to Americans without these college degrees and got them back on track. Now, World War II was a very decisive factor, but World War II would not have pulled the United States out of the Great Depression by itself. Alright? I fully support keeping Social Security public and creating a trust fund to continually support.
Governor?
Social Security already has a trust fund, okay? It's going bankrupt. I believe the question was about preserving Social Security. He just basically talked about the Tennessee Valley Authority back in 1932. Now, here's what we should do. Private savings accounts for every American. Why should the government have to tell you? Why should the government have to tell you how much money you have to put away for retirement? The government does not have a place in your wallet. You don't open up your wallet and have a place for government. That is your decision. It's your money that you've earned. The government should not be regulating you and telling you how much money you need to be putting away for Social Security. So it can be put into a huge trust fund so that way they can dig out of that trust fund whatever they want to fund their own programs. That's not the way it needs to work. We need to privatize Social Security so I can be in control of my money and you can be in control of your money. Okay? That is the basic principle behind privatization. The Democrats condemn it as if it's going to be killing jobs or taking away the main responsibility of government. It is not government's responsibility to tell us how much money we can save. Second of all, it would create thousands of new jobs in the private sector, in the financial advising sector, if we had people in control of their own money. What they do is, they're in control of their own money, they go to a financial advisor, that financial advisor gets paid a percentage of what they're saving, and it creates jobs and it keeps the economy going in the private sector, not the public sector. That is the main difference between President Obama's liberal beliefs and our conservative beliefs.
You've heard about trust issues with the government from the man who Republicans seek as their next leader of government. Now, these thousands of jobs that would be evolved in the private sector are coming from where? The public sector. People are employed in the public sector and they're employed in the private sector. There is a differentiation between the two, but at the end of the day, when they get their paycheck, they still have a job.
Governor Romney, if the United States were to become involved in another Iraq-type war, would you raise taxes to help pay for the war, and would you favor reinstituting the draft?
The bottom line is the United States, as much as we need to amp up our presence worldwide, cannot afford another war where we are searching for weapons of mass destruction that do not exist. We cannot afford it, okay? I understand that we need to advance our interests. The attacks in Libya, the attacks in Egypt that have happened this past week, that is an instance where we need to put our foot in. But we cannot afford another war like the Iraq War. As far as the draft, the draft, there is no reason why in America today we have 300 million citizens. There is no reason why with concentrated efforts on recruiting for the military, there's no reason why we would ever have to institute a draft like we did back in World War II.
President?
I agree completely with Mr. Romney on the issue of the draft. It's outdated and it's just not necessary at this time. Population has grown in the United States, we have over 300 million citizens, not feasible. Now, Mr. Romney just said that we can't afford another foreign involvement, which I agree with. But somehow Bush afforded two foreign conflicts in Iraq, which we had really no involvement in, just to topple the regime of Saddam Hussein, and the Afghanistan effort to capture Osama bin Laden, which under my administration was killed. Now, Bush afforded it how? By deepening the deficit. By deepening the pre-existing deficit that I inherited and that I am now responsible for. Yes, I have deepened the deficit, which is necessary. It's not wasteful spending. Not everything the government spends is wasteful. Yet, at the same point, I do agree with Mr. Romney. At this point in time, cutting the national deficit should be our priority. And a foreign conflict in which the United States is not put in danger is really unnecessary.
You said the deficit that you inherited, you said the deficit that you were responsible for, but you forgot to include the deficit that you doubled. Okay? You added $7 trillion to the debt over the past 4 years. That is wasteful spending. We have never spent money at that rate at any point in our human history. You're going to tell me that right now we need to spend that much money? You're going to tell me it's not wasteful for spending $7 trillion over 4 years? That's the type of fiscal insanity that is going to drive this country off a financial cliff.
Thank you, Governor.
Mr. President, should the children of illegal immigrants who entered this country as infants or young children be allowed to enter the path to citizenship?
Yes. The possibility of rounding up 12 million illegal aliens is absolutely insane. Now, the Republican platform has based a lot of their immigration beliefs off of that they're stealing American jobs. If there aren't people applying for the jobs that are American, they're not stealing any jobs. That's first of all. Now, to say that we're going to basically put these people into huge camps that can house 12 million people and deport every single one of them is absolutely insane. The United States needs workers. Yes, we have an unemployment rate. But if people are not searching for those, then we're not going to stimulate the small businesses that these people are working for, and that these business owners are not going to stimulate the economy. Now, I've also, as a senator, I've supported various bills that would slow immigration. And that is very important to the American society, in that we do protect jobs for Americans, but we don't get rid of these skilled workers.
Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Never once did I ever recommend rounding every illegal immigrant up and putting them into a Japanese-style World War II internment camp and torturing them until... That was just the connotation that President Obama had in that response. Now, what I do favor is an E-Verify system. An E-Verify system is where every immigrant searching for, looking for citizenship can go into a system. Now, in this system, they're tracked by the government. They're required to follow the laws by the government. Okay, so that way, if there was ever an issue, they can be deported, or the government is always in control of where they are at all times. Now, the thing that President Obama does not realize is that immigrants are here in this country working for lower wages than what we set as the minimum wage. What does that do? It undermines the American worker. What is wrong with undermining the American worker? It contributes to the unemployment rate. Americans can't find jobs simply because they're being outcompeted by immigrants who will work for lower prices than them. This is the major issue that we have with the immigration system. I favor securing the border by 2020. We need to put the boots on the ground. We need to have we need to not necessarily have a fence, but we need to keep enough boots on the ground so that way we can secure the entire Mexican border and drastically reduce the amount of people, including the drug cartels, that are illegally getting into this country. The drug war has ballooned out of control. We need to get it back under control by securing our border, something this administration has not done.
Thank you, Governor. President.
As regards to your curiosity with immigrant workers, why would, as CEO, President, and Managing Director of Bain Capital, would you outsource labor? That's one thing, first of all. Now, as to putting the boots on the ground, as Senator, I did support the Secure Fence Act, which allocates money to construct a 700-mile-long fence along the United States-Mexico border to slow the influx of undocumented aliens into the United States. I've supported a temporary increase in the H-1B visa program, which would give these people rights to work because they are supporting local economies.
Gentlemen, thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. That'll be our last question.